If there's one thing that our clients are resistant to, it is watching themselves on video. My name is Christine Clapp. I'm the president and founder of Spoken with Authority. We're a Washington, D.C. based presentation skills consultancy that elevates the presence and expands the influence of subject matter experts, leaders, and emerging leaders. Recording and review practice presentations and delivered presentations is a practice that we really work on engaging in with all of our clients and even our workshop participants, because it's such an important tool for self-awareness and for growth as a communicator. Today, I'm here with my colleagues, Lynn and Jean and Deidre, and we're going to talk more about why it's so important to record and review, and we'll provide some specific tips and strategies to make it easier and less awkward to do it. To get us started, Lynn, what are some recommendations you have for anyone listening who wants to start recording and reviewing, even if they're really not feeling it?
I would say that the easiest thing would be to just use your phone, and then as you are talking to other people, even if you're not talking directly in a FaceTime call or something like that, record it and see how you come across to other people. We know there's a resistance to it because the same way as people don't like to hear their recorded voice, they certainly don't like to see their recorded image. But at the same time, it's such valuable information from either end of the spectrum. Either you have underestimated how you're coming across, or you've over-exaggerated it. And it gives the client a chance to self-correct. And with a little additional input from other people, from outsiders, it can enhance performance.
Absolutely, Lynn. I think that the smartphone is such an amazing tool. When I first started teaching public speaking 20 years ago, we had to lug around camcorders and VHS tapes, and now it's right there on an iPad, on a smartphone, on your computer. It's so easy to do. It's something that technologically is a cinch. We're oftentimes on video conferences, so you can use a recording from a video conference call or an online presentation really easily now. And a lot of the platforms get around the issue of getting consent for people to be recorded in situations, because it will announce it. And you can do a setting where people have to say, yes, I agree to be recorded. So a lot of those hurdles and barriers for recording, the technology and the consent of people who are in the meeting or in the speaking engagement, those are really solved in many ways by the technology that's out there.
I wanted to add one other thing. After you record it, then you have to look at it.
Yes,
because a lot of people will record and it's there on their computer or on their phone, but then they can't bring themselves to actually look at it and make the assessment. It's hard.
It is
but
hard.
That's how it works.
It is hard. And we know that happens because oftentimes we will watch during our coaching sessions with our clients, and sometimes we'll leave the watching as homework. And a lot of the video sharing tools have metrics that tell us if people watch them. And clients, we know when you're not watching your videos, and it's pretty common that you're not. So please, after you record, take the time to review. Jean, what are your recommendations in terms of why it's important to record and review and how to make it easier?
Well, it's certainly important to just get a check on your perceptions. And one thing that I think can make it easier, at least to get people started with this practice, is to try recording when it's not a speech that you're doing. So it's not you worrying about your words. And what I mean by that is an activity like reading something. I had a client who we did an activity where she read some passages. And what we hear a lot from people in the 360 reviews is that someone is just not dynamic as a speaker, or that they speak in a monotone. And so what we did with this one client was she read a passage that she liked. And then I coached her a little bit, and she did it again with a little more animation, a little more expression. And then she did it again. And I think we did 4 takes, amping up the animation and the expression each time. And when she reviewed it, she saw that she didn't look silly and overly dramatic. She actually was being more herself in the more expressive readings. And she realized that she had been kind of holding back and constraining herself out of nerves. And so when she saw that she was really herself and it was good when she was truly expressive, she said herself that it was a real breakthrough moment. So I think that showed some real value in doing that videotaping and playback and doing it with something that wasn't too nerve producing because she was just reading some text.
Yeah, that's a really great point, Jean, is how recording and reviewing can help you with your perceptions of yourself. Oftentimes we have these scripts in our minds about how loud we are, how animated we are, different elements of our delivery, and they may or may not be true. Similar to you, I had a client we were working on with vocal delivery, and this one, it was on getting lower and louder. Her voice was really mousy. It was hard to hear. There's a bit of quiver in her voice. And she was the leader of the executive director of a nonprofit. And she was complaining. The reason she came to us is that she didn't feel that her board took her seriously. And we used this recording and review, and we had her say the Pledge of Allegiance several times. And after the third take, when she was really loud and really low, she said to me, I really felt like I was yelling, like it would be inappropriate to do this in a board meeting. And I said, wow, that's really interesting, because for me, you came across as really confident and commanded the room. I said, well, let's watch the video and see how you feel about the recording. As she watched it, she said, this is exactly what I've always wanted to convey to my board. It just felt really different than what I see and hear on the video. So it is really helpful to get that perception of what other people see and hear, because oftentimes what we think is too loud or too animated really is authentic and powerful and helps us with our executive presence. So I think that's really great. Thanks for sharing that example of your client and the importance of getting that extra piece of data for us to understand for our own self-awareness. Deidre, what about you? What do you think about video recording and review? What are your recommendations to our listeners and our community?
Yes, Christine, this is an interesting topic and one that I'm engaged and passionate about. So for video recording, I think the first thing you have to do is kind of just look at yourself in the mirror and get used to seeing yourself, and also make sure that you practice. Once you look in the mirror, you get to know what you look like from the neck up, and then you can do a full length mirror and just get used to seeing yourself. And then once you start to practice, then you can talk about things that you already know the material about. So your bio, in Toastmasters, we do our icebreaker, and that's something that you don't have to really do much explaining or have to really memorize, because you know yourself. And so once you start that first video, then it's easy to start doing others. And just a good way to do it is through your phone. You can use YouTube. There's all types of tools now. And you mentioned, the old video cam back in the day, but it's so easy to do it now. And once you do it once, it's easier to do it again and again.
Absolutely. And on that idea of baby steps, one of the things that we oftentimes recommend that clients do is when I'm in a workshop setting, we're having people do recording and review. One of the things that we'll do is we'll have them record and review their video. And as we are going back over it, to start with watching and not listening, and watching for something really specific. So let's look at your body language, your hand gestures, and have you zero in on that. Instead of taking everything in, there's a lot of data, and as critics of ourselves, we're always our own worst critic. We take in all of those pieces of information. We can get very critical quickly. But if you break it down into, okay, great, let's just watch. We'll turn the sound off. We'll watch for these specific things. Great. Now let's watch for facial expressions. Oh, great. Okay, now let's watch for eye contact. Where are your eyes going? Where is our head going? And then we'll say, okay, now let's switch to not watching it, but listening to it. What is our vocal quality? So it's some of the things Jean and I were talking about: the volume, the projection, the resonance, the pacing, the vocal variety, the enthusiasm. And we could also think about the filler words, the ums and ahs, and likes and and so's. That's another thing we can specifically listen to. So I would say don't try to take it all in at the same time, to break it down into pieces. And the other thing we always recommend is, as you approach watching your own video, approach it as if you are watching the video of a loved one or a very good friend or someone you mentor, because you would never be as critical of those people, someone you really care about, as you are of yourself. So definitely think about if this was someone else, what would I be noticing and what would I be pointing out? Because it's not helpful when people are being critical of their clothes or their hairstyle or other things about them. We want to focus on areas that we can change and improve. So, we really want to focus on those areas that we would point out to people who we work with or people who are close to us in our lives. This has been a really great conversation about how we can approach recording and review and make it a little easier, and the importance of doing it, how it's really important to raise our awareness and to become better communicators over time. So thanks again to Lynn and to Jean and to Deidre for sharing your expertise with the Spoken with Authority community today.